Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar. I've been talking about a lot of doom and gloom and everything, but one thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is, I don't know if this is like hypocrisy or something, ladies and gentlemen, but things are about to get a lot more insane, especially when it comes to things like our favorite video games. And I love talking about video games. Heck, my channel is called Some Ordinary Gamers. I play games. But recently I've been playing a lot of older stuff, like literally I was playing Chaos Theory last night. Probably one of the best stealth games ever made, okay? Sometimes I think graphically, if we just stayed here, I wouldn't really care. Games looked good enough, they came out fast enough, you weren't sitting here for like 10, 15 years, sometimes skipping entire console generations to get a fucking game in a franchise. I'm a Grand Theft Auto fan, but it's kind of mind fucky that back in the PlayStation 2 when I was growing up, we had like what, 5 Grand Theft Auto games? You had like GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas. You had some Liberty City Stories, Vice City. You even had like other Rockstar games. You had like Manhunt 2. I mean, the PlayStation 2, wild fucking times. PlayStation 3, you had Grand Theft Auto 4. You also had Midnight Club, Max Payne. And then all of a sudden, the output just kind of stops. It's crazy that a Grand Theft Auto has skipped an entire generation. The PlayStation 4 has not had a Grand Theft Auto game of its own. We went straight from the triple all the way to the PlayStation 5, okay? That's how far we've gotten, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, games are taking a long time to come out. They're fucking expensive. So what if companies started to embrace, you get it, AI, ladies and gentlemen? Now, artificial intelligence is like that fucking elephant in the room. It's all around us. Seems like everyone's fucking using it, but it's kind of a sin to use it, I guess, in a creative fashion. Now, I want to start this video off. Again, I want to preface this entire discussion while saying I don't like AI slop, okay? I really don't. If I'm on like any social media feed, God forbid, if I ever come across a video or photo that's generative, I just straight up stop using the app, I power off the device, and I fuck off and do something else. If I come across any article that I read where I just see the telltale signs of the actual webpage itself being slopped out, I get up, Alt F4, I fucking leave the room, okay? I'm that disgusted, okay? I really don't care to, sort of enjoy or watch content that I know actually has no fucking passion behind it. You know what I mean? That's why I play a lot of older games, because I feel like a lot of newer stuff is just sort of like a retread, diluted, watered-down solution of a lot of older games that I once enjoyed back in the PlayStation 2 and PS3 that still hold up to this day, still take way less time to complete because they're not filled with constant modern gaming bloat, like Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, and ultimately, at the end of the day, if it ain't broke, yeah, I'm just gonna keep playing it. It's not like a burnout, some would say. It's just literally, I don't know, I just know what quality is. It's like fucking sipping a nice whiskey, and then all of a sudden you go back to goddamn the weakest Jack Daniels you can find. Sometimes it's good to just appreciate the peak. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, why is it getting way more insane, way more worse? Well, in the last, week, one of the biggest gaming announcements has sort of happened. PlayStation came out with a weak-ass announcement. Then Summer Games Fest came, where Resident Evil Code Veronica is getting remade. Alien Isolation fucking 2 is finally showing up. All I really needed. And then, of course, you got Xbox with Persona 6, so I'm gonna be honest with you, fuck GTA 6. I think all the games I ever wanted are kind of coming out from all the franchises I care. Final Fantasy, everything included. Anyways, this is Crazy Taxi World Tour. If you've never played Crazy Taxi, I would love to tell you, hey, get the original game on fucking Steam, but it ain't purchasable on Steam, man. God damn, do I love modern digital gaming. Just fucking get the Dreamcast ROM and emulate it. God is still gonna let you into heaven if you emulate a game from so long ago. Anyways, they're, I guess, remaking it, or making a fucking sequel at this point, where you play Crazy Taxi, a game where you pick up people, drive them around town, drop them off, while doing God knows all the crazy stunts. I can't tell you if a driver's license will not be suspended or revoked for driving like this. But what I can tell you is controversy will kick in when people scroll down the page and read, the developers describe how their games use AI-generated content. Oh boy. Oh, we're walking into the minefield on this one. At Sega Corporation, we utilize generative AI as a support tool for developers, aiming to provide better content to our users and enable developers to focus more on creative tasks. We have used such generative AI support during development of Crazy Taxi. No AI was used in reference to the performers in the game. It's kind of a vague topic of discussion, but basically that's the company admitting that, yeah, we used AI slop. So I was like, there's gotta be a deeper explanation. I mean, what kind of AI slop did you use? Does it even matter? Let's get into it. So you can see Sega was like, hold on a minute, let's talk about it. So basically they used it to develop background assets for Crazy Taxi. I promise I'm gonna keep saying it that way through the rest of the fucking video. Assets generated were still subject to review by the development team. So basically the idea here was that somewhere in the background there were some billboards, some art assets that I guess Sega was like, you know, who gives a fuck about hiring some artist for it? We'll just generate them out or use them as references, maybe, I guess, or review them by the development team. We're getting to a point where a lot of these games are getting slowly sussed out by the actual gaming community, and they're like, hold on a minute, I think your game has artificial intelligence slop. And you know, the reality of it is I was kind of under the impression that when these games started to have AI slop thrown into them, maybe, just maybe, the prices would start to fucking go down. But actually, a lot of games nowadays are just releasing at like $90 Canadian anyways. So, you know, we're already laying off people. We're sending them to the fucking Shadow Realm. The games are getting AI slop thrown into them. Not this one specifically, but the prices, you know, they just keep going up. It's like the same bullshit that they once told me back in the day, like, no, if you buy your games digitally, I swear they're gonna be like 10, 20 bucks cheaper, because you're not even paying for the packaging. Oh no, buddy. That file still cost me the same amount as a fucking physical disc. And you know the funny part is, the goddamn physical discs don't even have the games on them in some cases. Not all, at least, so far. But that number is growing, unfortunately. But that's a different topic and different story discussion. So this is one of those things where, like, I wanted to look into, like, how Steam talks about AI disclosure. And it's just interesting that, again, when it comes to these companies disclosing what they use, basically there are a couple there's a couple things that kind of like separate certain aspects, right? For instance, they'll basically say that, again, if you're using AI in video games, any kind of content created with the help of AI tools, under the Steam distribution agreement, you promise Valve that your game will not include illegal, infringing content, whatever. And again, we're interested in the pre-generated, which is what you would do as you're developing the fucking game. Now, of course, interestingly enough, one thing that I saw over here was the mention of coding inside this stuff as well. Now, I don't know, like, there's this weird, like, hypocrisy that I've kind of, like, weirdly noted about this situation, where it seems like the AI art is something that everybody, you know, rightfully gets up in arms about. Like, you know, obviously generating AI art is bad because obviously it was trained off of the works of other artists in a lot of ways without their fucking consent. And you can imagine that, yeah, transforming people's, like, training information without their consent probably isn't super ethical, right? For instance, I have a really good friend, Imaru, you may know him as Novika on the internet. Guy makes his living doing art. He is commissioned for doing art. The way he pays for the food in his fridge and the roof over his head is by people finding his stuff, you know, worth paying for. They give him money, and he produces artwork for them. Now, he's told me that, you know, literally, as he's been doing this for a living, there have been people that have taken his own artwork, thrown it into things like Gemini, and used it to modify things that he would not agree to, right? And this is stuff that, again, I feel like we're crossing so many fucking ethical boundaries, but ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of these companies are going to be kind of using this. I feel like, in some weird way, when I see companies like Sega make that disclosure, a lot of it just comes out literally because, to me, it seems like when these companies make that kind of a disclosure, I feel like a lot of the industry is actually using artificial intelligence, and in a lot of ways, are just not fucking admitting to it. Like, for instance, remember when this game, Expedition 33, great game, by the way, when it actually, like, ended up winning Game of the Year, everyone was super duper fucking hyped about it, but nowhere in their page do they mention things like AI generation. And you might be like, well, maybe they didn't use it. But ultimately, at the end, ladies and gentlemen, they did actually use artificial intelligence, right? Where, again, in certain, screenshots people had found, they actually had generative AI like newspapers that were placed inside as props. Now, obviously, this shit was replaced, and clearly, the company was like, listen, this was only there for things like development, right? Placeholder shit. It feels like for a lot of these companies, like, when they get sussed out and caught, it's always, oh, it was meant to be a fucking placeholder. But I wish these companies were just fucking honest about it, right? Like, at the end of the day, let's be fucking real. They want to save money. So I'd rather you just admit outright that you really didn't give a fuck about hiring the artist anyways, and you would have just used generative artificial intelligence, whether it be Gemini, whether it be fucking ChatGPT, to create this fucking shit to begin with, right? It's one of those reasons that, like, when I see this level of Gen AI stuff, it does actually pull me away from the experience. And even if it's like such a minor thing, like for instance, when it came to Call of Duty, not to say that Call of Duty doesn't have other fucking massive issues, but one of the things that I found really gross was in the most recent Call of Duty Black Ops games, like 6 and 7. Fuck me. In the most recent games, right? In the most recent Black Ops stuff, you would have things like calling cards or emblems that would clearly be generative AI, right? Like, obviously, Activision didn't fucking care enough about shitting out, a few calling cards for a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Instead, they just threw it out to, like, whatever, co-pilot tool they had, shot out a few things, maybe made some edits to those, like, generative AI slops, and then called it a day. It's those things where, like, the more I see of it, the less interested I am in your game. I'd rather play a million Splinter Cell Chaos theories that I know were made entirely by a group of people that were passionate about a game that was made in a clearly defined scope, a game that doesn't fucking need hundreds of hours to play, a game that was human-made, because at the end of the day, that's really where the best kind of content comes from. But one of the things that I found a little bit hypocritical about this a little bit too is that it seems like everyone's so focused on the AI art that nobody really looks at the AI coding side of things, right? One of the things that is really going to be difficult to sort of discern in the gaming world is how many companies are using AI-assisted coding, right? Which, if you follow any software, development field, everyone is fucking using all forms of AI, right? Like, everyone's got a subscription to Codex, everyone's got a fucking subscription to Claude, everyone's got a sub. Everyone uses LLMs in the world of coding. So what's really wild to me is that obviously people have this, like, anger on copy-pasted, like, trained data off of, like, generative art, but, isn't code almost treated the same way too? Like, aren't coders, which historically, let's be real, if you've ever done any coding, back in the day, you used to go to like Stack Overflow or like any web page, look up the solution, copy paste code all the time. But again, it's all of the work of actual human beings that have been fed into a lot of these models that are now being resold back to us at exorbitant fucking prices, used to code together the games that we are playing. Now, GTA 6 is one of those games that I'm excited for, and even the CEO, Strauss Zelnick, was like, guys, okay, listen, in regards to GTA 6, generative AI has no part in what Rockstar Games is building. Their worlds are handcrafted. That's what differentiates them. They're built for the ground up, building by building, street by street. So when I read this kind of a quote, it's such a very carefully crafted quote. First of all, when he says specifically with regards to GTA 6, so he's not talking about GTA 6 and the future, just the game that has been in development while the AI boom was starting to begin with, right? And of course, the other thing is obviously saying the world is handcrafted, right? Like, obviously the in-game assets that you see are built building by building, street by street. But the underlying code, are you really going to fucking tell me that a company like Rockstar Games hasn't even somewhat experimented with LLMs when writing code, when debugging their software, especially considering how much they got in trouble for things like crunch down the road? All the other big AAA companies like Ubisoft, EA, have basically embraced generative AI And it makes me wonder just like where the demarcation line is for people who are like, look, the art stuff is bad, but we can tolerate the coding stuff for a second. Like to me, personally speaking, I'm kind of an all or nothing guy. Like when I get disgusted, it's usually if, again, this technology is used in general, whether it be coding, whether it be art, whether it be like an entire person's performance or audio work. I think all of it should be treated with the same level of vitriol if we're actually being fucking serious about this situation. But look, ultimately, the end of the day, I feel like everything that I've seen from the gaming industry has kind of led me into realizing that this problem is going to get way worse as time goes on. For instance, just to tie things off with, Kingdom Hearts 1 to 3, a game that, I'm actually somewhat excited to pick up a collection for, like physically. First off, I don't even think the game is going to be physically available on disc. And the other problem is the key art for the game appears to actually have a level of AI generation that I think has people questioning. For instance, looking around on Donald Duck, you can see that certain fingers, for instance, the index finger might be missing. Looking closer into some of the clothing, it seems like there are some AI errant artifacts, especially around the actual, it's hard to tell, with the actual tower where it seems like maybe things were AI enhanced, maybe things were removed. Even simple things like the crowns on the bottom of the shoe right here are completely omitted and replaced with these standard blocks. Something that I don't think artificial intelligence is truly figuring out, as it's generating this crap out too. But a lot of companies will use it, seemingly so, in the fucking cover art for their video games. Because that's just where the industry's kind of gone, boys. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I will say, like, the only way for this bubble not to pop is when it just becomes so accepted, right? And when a lot of these companies get this stuff thrown over to them, right? Look, I don't think it's going to be impossible to leave the world of generative AI behind. I think a lot of these big gaming companies, and I don't omit Sega or Capcom or Rockstar Games or Take-Two away from. Remember, all these companies are fucking publicly traded. They're big corporate AAA companies. If you think EA, Ubisoft, Activision are fucking bad, Microsoft, all these companies fall into the same terms, right? All these companies would basically find a way to shave a buck off of development and still charge you the same money down the road. And if that means omitting the human beings out of at least what is now deemed to be the most tertiary part of the process, they're not going to fucking stop, man. Like, it is what it is. Is there some strong condemnation required? Yeah. If you're somebody that obviously doesn't feel so comfortable about generative AI in your video games, you probably shouldn't be excusing what happened with Crazy Taxi or even with Kingdom Hearts. But unfortunately, I just feel like it's one of those things, and I don't want to sound so defeatist here, but I feel like a lot of the companies out there making games are all using generative AI, whether it be not just for art, but definitely for fucking writing code. And for writing code, it's a lot harder to figure that out or suss that out, since we're not looking at the source code for every single one of these games released. But I think it's just out there. I think the only companies that are brave enough to admit it might be the ones that slightly get like a bit of, like a thumbs up for me, like, hey, at least you were brave enough to tell me that you were slopping out stuff. Because just in the last like 6-7 months, in the last 12 months of this entire process, this entire industry, I feel like it's just become a problem that's been worse and worse over time. And it's only going to get way worse, come 2027, 2028, right? I don't know. I don't know, man. Wild shit. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Let me know what you think about all this, too. I don't want to be the only one screaming into the camera. I do read the comment section of this video, as I do every video. So let me know what you think. I am out.